Hello my darlings, it's Zui here, and today I'm delivering to you another Bakugou story. I hope you enjoyed as much as I enjoyed making it. But before we go right into it, I would like to remind you to watch the video until the end, like or dislike, and comment something down below. This way you help me with the YouTube algorithm, and that increases my range on YouTube, as that means that my video gets recommended to more people. So please do that, and let's get right into the show. It had been a lovely evening, you thought. Your boyfriend, the pro-hero Ground Zero, or as you were lovingly allowed to call him Kak-chan, had picked you up at 5, and you two went on your merry way. First, you watched the most cheesy romantic comedy you had ever seen. In fact, it was so cheesy, you had the weird feeling some younger viewers of this movie might get the wrong idea about the ideal guy or girl. And then you two went to the most lavishly looking 5-star restaurant you had ever seen. Yatsuki ordered the steak, while you ordered the most mouth-watering lamb chops you had ever read the description of. And it tasted even better.
So how's life treating you?
He asked with a confident smile.
I know I'm not home very often. You know, work. Sorry about that.
You shook your head. Oh no, it's been a joy, really, just... I feel like such a gold digger. He gave you a hearty laugh. 3 weeks ago, he had convinced you to live in his huge apartment in the middle of the city. After all, he was rich.
It's fine. I know you aren't.
For a moment his smile faltered.
I know my fair share of gold diggers, sweetheart. You're definitely not one of them.
And then a smile returned.
It's fine. Just don't overdo it. Mikasut kasa.
You chuckled.
What?
It's Mikasa Esu Kasa. He blushed, making you chuckle once more. I love you, you said with a soft smile, which forced him to blush.
I love you too, sweetheart.
Eventually, you two finished your meal, paid, and left. What a wonderful evening, Kak-chan, you exclaimed as the two of you reached the door of the skyscraper his giant apartment was in.
It's not over yet.
He purred. You giggled. And what does that mean? He wrapped his arms around you.
Why don't you guess?
Slowly his hands moved down to your butt. Let me think. You're going to make it hard for me to sit tomorrow? Your seductive tone made him groan. However, before he could reply, his phone rang.
Hold on.
You shrugged with slight annoyance.
Now what?
He shouted suddenly.
Sorry, babe. Gotta run to the office. Something about the leak.
He barked at you after hanging up. Your heart sank as disappointment spread throughout your body. Well, I guess tonight was too good after all. He couldn't hear your sarcastic comment, as he was already in his car. He didn't even have time to say goodbye. You entered the dark apartment. Without him, its silence was deafening. With a sigh, you walked past the beautiful black and orange decor to his gold-plated bathroom. It was probably the most decadent and expensive thing in his entire building. And he had spent a small fortune on that special luxury bathtub. You took off your shoes and were about to take off your dress when suddenly something heavy hit you on the back of the head. An explosion of pain followed as you fell onto the ground, hard. Before your vision blurred, you heard a noise. It sounded like the singing of a girl. A splash of ice-cold water ripped you out of the sanguine blackness. Fear was the first thing you felt. Then you saw the ropes that tied you to an uncomfortable metal chair, and the fear was replaced by absolute horror. In front of you, under the harsh light of a singular lamp, stood a girl. She was wearing a white high school uniform, on top of that a brown jacket. Yellow eyes were seemingly staring right into your very core. In her hands was a dripping bucket. "Oh, sweet, you're awake!" Her tone was sweet, but her eyes were filled with fire. "How are you?" you croaked. She smiled. "Did Baku baby not tell you?" She giggled. "My name is Hineko Toga. Nice to meet you." She took 2 steps to your left, towards a clean metal table, on it were things whose use you definitely didn't want to know or feel. "You know, it's a shame that Bakugou likes his job more than you." She picked up a scalpel from the table. "That way, you would probably have a much better evening today." She walked over behind you. "Now tell me, little angel," she whispered into your ear, "how big is he down there?" You blushed and looked into the opposite direction. Toga chuckled. "That means he's really big, or terribly small." She walked back in front of you, slowly tracing the scalpel along your skin. It produced a terrible scratching noise inside your head, and small stings of pain whenever the sharp blade penetrated the skin just a bit. Once she reached the back of your hand, her body stopped moving entirely. Your breath hitched. And then without warning, she slammed the tool into your hand, nailing it to the chair. The pain ripped through your body like a flash, and you screamed. Your eyes filled with tears. With bloodied hands, Toga grabbed you by the chin, forcing you to look at it. Blood was slowly oozing out of the wound, while your hand trembled ever so slightly from the pain. "You know, this is my favorite part, actually. The moment when they understand that they're not getting out of this alive." She gloated. "You will find me soon enough." You coughed. Without saying another word, Toga grabbed her scalp and yanked it out, eliciting another scream from you. The blood now leaving your body faster. "Such hope! Such anger! You hate me, do you?" "I don't want you to hate me." "Well, kinda do." "Do you hate me?" asked the monster in front of you. "Why are you doing this?" you cried. "Love? Nah, that's what usually is the reason. No, I just really, really hate Bakugou." The pain in your body slowly turned into a numb pounding, giving you just enough strength to collect your thoughts. "What do you want? Information?" The girl giggled with glee. "No! I learned from experience that torture doesn't give you the information you want. No. I just want..." She put her thumb under her chin and thought. "I want him to suffer." She walked back to her metal table. "Oh, I'm feeling this tonight." You heard a loud clong behind you. "Oops, it's a bit heavy, but I like that." Your body began to rush with adrenaline when she came back into view with a 2x4 in her tiny hands. Without as much as making a single sound, she swung it straight into your shins. A disgusting cracking noise filled the room, with your whole body convulsed with agony. "Sorry, I really didn't like the look of your legs. They were too... what's the word? Perfect? Let's just settle with perfect. You couldn't bear to look at them, but she forced you to, by grabbing the back of her head. Seeing the broken mess that was your legs, you could no longer hold it in. Hot liquid shot up your throat, and with a grotesque gurgling sound you vomited all over yourself. Tears now streaming out of your eyes like a waterfall, while snot hang from your nose. They always get so ugly at this stage, Toga muttered. Her next swing hit your head, not hard enough to knock you out, sadly, but still a powerful enough blow that made you see spots of muddy purple and dark brown. Blood now mixed with your tears as you quietly wept, while your head hung slump off your shoulders. I can't decide, she shouted behind you. With a cartoonishly evil grin, she pulled the table up next to you. On it were various blades, needles, and other things. Some were looking rusty, some were covered in dried blood, and some were clean. Your eyes widened in horror while you stared at the serrated blade about the length of your foot. You know, I feel as if showing these to people is always more enjoyable than only showing you one at a time. Her hand floated dangerously close to the serrated knife. With panic, you moved your head to the opposite side of it. That one! You spouted out quickly. Toga raised an eyebrow and grabbed something on the left. This one? Isn't it a little boring? It was a pair of tweezers. I watch too many shows where they use these, but you know what? Fine. She kicked the table away and aggressively shoved the tweezers under a nail of your unharmed hand, sending a stinging pain down into your gut. This will hurt. She paused. You know more than you think it will hurt. Like, no joke. She giggled. Happened to me once. Oh boy, this really wasn't fun. If it wasn't so cliche, I would actually admire your choice. I would have just picked the big saw blade and stabbed you to death. I think I now understand why he loves you so much. You are a pervy one, aren't you? A searing pain hit you like a ton of bricks as she ripped it off. It hurt so much, I thought you'd pass out again, right then and there. You looked up at her, trying to get your bearings. Her words sounded muffled, yet she kept going. Crack. It was unbearable. Crack. She violently grabbed you by the hair, forcing you to look as she mutilated your fingers. A nub of flesh hung from the side, barely attached. It didn't even look like a fingertip anymore. You barely even registered the blood spewing out. You felt faint. It could stop, you begged, your voice barely there. Please, it could stop. Toga didn't say anything. Crack. Cheerful tunes suddenly interrupted Toga's work. The hell? She asked and looked around. You tried to collect yourself. That was your ringtone. Was Kak-chan calling you? She turned around and pulled it out of your pockets. Hello? She said in your voice. How did she do that? But your body was too weak to say anything.
Hey, where are you?
You heard him ask. Oh yeah, Bakugou baby, I was gonna tell you that I'm with Deku and basically I'm breaking up with you. His dick is just... Quiet filled the room. Kak-chan? Hey, Kak-chan, she said with Deku's voice. You met the number 3 pro a few times, thanks to Bakugou. Seriously, how was she doing that?
You're not dumb.
Toga blinked. What?
She would never break up with me over the phone. She's too nice for that. What did you do to her, Toga?
The anger. You could feel it. Toga gave you a dumbfounded look, before grinning and cheerfully replying, I broke her legs, destroyed her fingers, and I was about to gouge her eyes out with the same blade I impaled her hands with. An uncomfortable silence followed, but the look on Toga's face, utter bliss. She gave you a questioning look. Bakugou, baby? Are you still there? Does he always leave a conversation like that? He asked you directly. The answer was no, but you didn't have the strength to reply. Suddenly, his voice cut through the silence.
We're 17 at the docks. I'll be there in 5.
The phone slipped out of her hands, and she made a noise that almost had you laughing. Her eyes were moving rapidly towards you, and then to a place in the darkness, probably where the exit door was. She raised one finger and pointed at you. Like a child who didn't get the right ice cream, she hissed. I hate you. I hate him, but thanks for the lovely evening. Goodbye. Before running off, she harshly kicked your legs, filling your head with noises of broken bone and torn flesh, and you gagged. However, your spirit was strong enough. You didn't black out. Whether or not this was a blessing or a curse, it's all on Bakugou now. Your entire body was surging with waves of pain, primarily from your legs and fingers. You took a gamble and allowed yourself to slightly lean back into the chair. The resulting nauseating pain was luckily very short, and at the very least your back stopped hurting from being in a tensed up upright position. Seconds turned into minutes, and you were beginning to feel lightheaded, probably from the blood loss. Bakugou rushed into the building, ignoring the commands of the police officers Deku and Red Riot. He kicked open doors and blew holes into walls. A mad rampage to find you, hopefully still alive. Until he managed to pry open a large metal door in the deepest corner of the building. There, still bound to the chair, sat your slender, half-conscious frame. Tears began streaming out of his eyes, but you had lost too much strength. You could barely acknowledge his presence.
Don't worry, I got you.
Don't worry, I got you. I got... You repeated over and over as he untied your wrists. Kachan.
Kachan is here. Don't worry, I got you. I got you.
He repeated over and over as he untied your wrists.
Kachan is here. Me and the guys will get you out. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Like a mantra. There wasn't even anger in his voice. Just pure and utter sadness. Once untied, he took a step back and gasped. He hadn't even noticed your legs. You were in no condition to be carried out like he planned. What if one of your bones would rip through the skin, or worse, an artery? You would have bled out by the time he reached the ambulance. He scratched the back of his head, thinking. He needed to think. And finally, Red Riot appeared at the door. Bro, did you... Oh. He gasped upon seeing you. Okay, I get first aid responders. Just give me like 2 minutes.
What if we don't have to?
Was Bakugou's response. What's the first rule of civilian rescue? Bakugou gulped.
They're already having the worst day of their lives. Saying this looks bad is redundant and will likely make it worse.
With a forced grin, the redhead patted the blonde's shoulder. Just 1 minute, okay? At this point, you were barely there. Your heart hurt, your eyes were watery, but the muffled sound that you heard from somewhere seemed to keep you holding on to your will to live. Then Sunday lights were shining into your eyes, and your body was shuddering. Something was happening around you. You felt something pierce into your shoulder, and you heard a muffled scream that sounded familiar. It sounded like you, but you weren't screaming, were you? Now you were drifting into a dark abyss. It was as if you were floating. There was a calm nothingness all around you. No pain, but also no feeling. In a way, you're glad that whatever was happening was happening. And eventually the abyss gave grounds to large rows of shelves. Your heart stopped for a split second as you realized you weren't floating, you were falling. Your crash was painless as the void, and you found yourself on a ground of nothingness. Around you stretched seemingly endless amounts of bookshelves that was seemingly organized, were just crammed with the thickest novels you had ever seen. You weren't an avid reader, but maybe this is how people get their $1 million ideas upon waking up out of a coma. You took a careful step forward. The ground felt like glass, tainted, black as death. A thought came to you. What if you got lost? That thought alone was as terrifying as Toga's presence. And then your curiosity was immediately replaced with fear, as out of the corner of your eye you saw movement. You turned to see a mass of darkness, blacker than the void, moving towards you. It had a face, if you could call it that. A pale, round shape with 2 black eyes and an open, grinning mouth, a crack going through the right half of it. It was slow, and 2 skeletal hands with folds in them were stretched out towards you. You fell on your butt and began crawling away from it, until it emitted something that sounded like a disappointed groan. You looked at the entity in front of you. It had stopped moving, and now just stared down at you. A thought came to you. If you look into the abyss long enough, it looks back. Was it that? And then you opened your eyes. You needed to adjust, but you were sure you were looking onto a white ceiling, and you let out a sigh of relief. The smell, the noises you heard in the distance, and the fact you were lying on something just as white as the ceiling told you that you were in a hospital. You wiggled your body ever so slightly. A serene pain came from somewhere below you, before almost immediately turning into a numb pounding. Those were probably your still broken and mangled legs. You shook your head. You could tell that there were bandages around your head, hands, and legs. Finally, you began to look around yourself. You were in a surprisingly large room. The bed next to yours was empty but clearly in use, and the TV that hung before you was turned off. On the other side of you was a metal pole with a bottle of what was probably sedatives slowly dripping through a tube that led to a cannula on your hand, which now didn't have a hole in it anymore. A large window and glass door at the other end of the room led to a balcony, and on a sofa that stood in the opposite corner to your bed sat a man with blonde hair. He was chatting with a very, very old-looking woman who was sitting in a wheelchair across the table of him. Neither of them had noticed you waking up. Maybe this was for the better. Your tongue felt way too heavy to talk. Probably a side effect of the sedatives. Quickly you fell back to sleep. The next time you awoke, it was the middle of the night. Bakugou was sleeping quietly in the bed next to you, and the drip was still filling your head with fog. Suddenly Bakugou shifted in his bed. Clearly he was having a nightmare. You wished you could stand up and cuddle with him, but you simply felt too weak to do anything but blink. And eventually you decided to continue sleeping. Finally, it seemed like your moments of lucidity aligned with him giving you attention. You had opened your eyes just barely, the room around you being shapes and muffled noises, but you felt the presence next to you, something warm and protective. A hand was gently caressing your cheek.
Hey,
He murmured after retreating his hand upon noticing that you were awake.
sorry you went through this.
There was guilt in his voice, as if all this was his fault. It hurt you deeply. Nothing left your throat but a pained gasp. A tear rolled down his face. You managed to raise your numb arm, and he gently took your hand.
I love you.
He whispered.